Sethmar story. Thanks for joining us again. Our conversation this week is with Charlie Saffro, founder and owner of CS Recruiting.
Welcome to another episode of the Sethmar story. My name is Andy Tooley, and we're here to tell you about some of our vendors and our partnerships in the industry. Today, we're going to talk about people and recruiting. To me, a freight brokerage is built on people, and without people, nothing would happen. Sure, you need the right technology, but the culture and the climate in the office is paramount to everything and really creates, the special uniqueness of a freight brokerage. Without further ado, I'm going to bring on my good friend, Charlie Saffro from CS Recruiting, and we're excited to have you on today. Hi, Charlie.
Hi, Andy. Excited to be here with you.
Well, really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy, and obviously the market out there is pretty crazy in the recruiting world, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and CS Recruiting for any of those that don't know you, and we'll kind of jump into it.
Sure. I'll give you a quick background. My name's Charlie Saffro, and I'm the president and founder of CS Recruiting, which is a third-party recruiting firm. We happen to specialize in the industry. So we work with supply chain, transportation, and logistics. We partner with third-party logistics providers. We partner with transportation, warehousing, asset providers. On the shipper side, we work with the manufacturers and distributors, technology companies, equipment companies. Really, the way we think about it is if the position has any influence on supply chain, logistics, or transportation decision-making, it's usually a role that's in our wheelhouse. So I could definitely relate to what you've got going on from a daily standpoint, but also with your hiring needs, because this is the industry that we play in.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll be honest, I've just learned a few more aspects of your guys' business. We've engaged with you on some recruiting on the brokerage side, but I didn't realize you guys played parts on all the other sides.
Yeah, we do. It all kind of goes together, and that's how we were able to expand our services is, if you think about someone starting their career as a dispatcher, it's an obvious step for them to move into carrier sales or load planning or transportation management. So we've expanded our services just by representing candidates and really listening to how they want to proceed with their careers.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, so for us, we've been growing at a pretty rapid pace. We rely a lot on referrals, but outside of that, we've found it pretty tough as far as getting good quality candidates in the door. We hang our hat again, like I had mentioned, on our people. And that's the forefront of engaging with our customers, our carriers. And how have you seen the broader job market out there, and maybe where it was, where it is today, and any kind of insight you might think on where it is going down the road?
Specific to the industry, I would say that the Great Resignation is still going on. When we look at the global workforce, the supply of talent is less than the demand for talent, and we really feel it in our industry. And I think there's a lot of reasons for it. We could probably talk for hours on why people are staying and why people are leaving, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of companies that want to hire, and a lot of them want to hire the same type of candidate, and there's only so much supply to go around. So when I talk about supply, it's candidates that not only have the right skill set and background, they're also available legally in the right location, and they're also interested. So a lot of recruiting has to come back to your culture, retention. You're definitely on the right track with your thinking. But a couple of the reasons why we're seeing the supply and demand be off balance in our market, certainly there's a burnout factor, and it's unfortunate that a lot of people enter our industry, and when they leave their first company, they often leave the industry. And I think it's companies like Sethmar that can turn that attitude around, give them the experience to be part of something bigger, make them understand their purpose, and make them want to have a lifelong career in the industry. Like I mentioned before, there's so many different paths you can pave. We also are seeing a lot of candidates be very resistant to lateral moves right now. So if you're looking to hire a carrier sales rep or a customer sales rep, account manager, sometimes those hires are the trickiest. And many companies relying on an entry-level strategy, which makes sense if you have the training resources, the capacity to get them up and running. But beyond that, candidates, I don't want to say that they're entitled specifically in our industry. There's just not a ton of interest in moving from a carrier rep to a carrier rep unless there's really something in it for them. The other trend that we're seeing is that it's not all about money anymore. So while that base salary and that commission plan used to be what lured someone in, candidates are just realizing that there's more to work than their paycheck, and they want culture. Like I said, they want that leadership that inspires them. They want to feel like they're making a difference. And I'd say a good amount of the candidates that are making lateral moves right now are doing it for those reasons, usually to get out of a toxic environment. They'll take the same job, they'll take a similar salary, they just want a better way of life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely something that we've all learned over the last couple of years is there's a lot more to life than just money and flexibility, everything else. I started my career at a big box shop. It was an awesome place to learn freight, but the culture was if you're going to be gone for an hour and 10 minutes at lunch to go to the dentist, you better come in 10 minutes earlier, stay 10 minutes late. And while I kind of understood that, I'm like, well, if I'm doing my job and getting it done, everything else, why do I need to put the extra 10 minutes in? And I think to quote a friend of ours, Trey Griggs, he made the comment, people hire for productivity, not necessarily for time. Mm-hmm. And so sitting there, punching the clock, they're going to sit there for their 8 hours, but they're not going to be productive over the 8 hours.
Exactly.
So finding ways to meet them on their terms and what matters to them outside of, like you said, just the pay. That resonates with me. So, talking about recruiting and how tough it is out there, how big of, I love the CS Recruiting brand.
Thank you.
I love your LinkedIn, everything you put out there. How much do you think that brand coincides with recruiting?
A lot, but I'll tell you a little bit about the evolution of the brands, because it really is interesting how our brand has not only driven our perception in the industry and our reputation, but also drives a lot of our business. So I was an early adopter on LinkedIn, and I spent the first 8 or so years on the platform really using it for networking. So using it to find people, to connect with people, to make, common networking, once removed, twice removed, and then we can engage in a conversation. And that was very effective. And that was more, I would say, like an outbound strategy where I was still hunting for these relationships and getting aggressive to target the right people and form a conversation. In the last 3 years, I've modified my strategy a bit, and it's more about that thought leadership. And part of it is just, the position I'm in at my own company, the time I have, but also my evolution as a leader. And I really feel that the thought leadership piece has driven us to a new level. It has enhanced our brand. It has driven all of our new business comes from the outside. So we're very fortunate at this time. We don't have a sales team or a salesperson. The opportunities come to us. A lot of that is through referral and word of mouth, but a good chunk of it is through finding us on LinkedIn. So, for me, it's more of that give strategy. I'm here to give advice and information and share before I get. It'd be very rare that I would connect with someone on LinkedIn and, go after them with an aggressive sales email the first time. It's like, let's get to know each other. Let's start slow and walk before we run. But I do find that thought leadership piece, it helps you establish some expertise. And then if a company isn't hiring when they see it, usually when they do need to hire, they're going to remember your brand. They're going to remember your logo. They're going to dig up that email that is buried in their archived inbox. So a lot of it is just about putting yourself out there and knowing that if you form that right perception, they're going to know where to find you when their need is there.
Yeah, no, that's I think nail on the head. That's what we hope for when we're prospecting with a potential customer or even a carrier. You hope that maybe they can't have a truck for us today, but they remember us when they are in the area because we're professional, or that right. Customer, that gets 20 emails a day from brokerages is, well, how do you differentiate yourself? And to me, that's the person.
Yeah. And it's another good point around that. is that people want to work with people. And you talked about people at the beginning of this, and I wholeheartedly agree that brokerage is a relationship business. You need two personalities to have the relationship and to do business, move freight. But one thing that we've seen is we have a LinkedIn account for our company, CS Recruiting, and then the individuals on our team all have our own LinkedIn accounts at the individual personal brand level. And people respond to other humans way more than they would ever respond to a logo. So even though our company page has 4 times as many followers as anyone else, the engagement is at that human level. And I think that's a great opportunity for companies like yours. Like, get your people talking, get them sharing case studies, talking about their purpose, why it's different to work at your company, what the value is of working at the company. Because I found along the way, nobody wants to work with a mysterious person behind a logo. They want your drama. They want to share your wins and losses with you. And that's really what forms that first connection and that bond.
Yes, no, that's they want to feel part of it, and kind of why we chose to call this the Sethmar story. And you used the word perception earlier. To me, the story you're telling creates a perception, and the perception prepares your expectations. And so telling that story creates, when people walk in here, they feel the culture and everything else, and then they know what to expect. And we have a big sticker on a wall in our kitchen that says "Get average out," and
I love that.
It's one of those things, like, if you do something average here, it should be a diss. Hey, we're going to be better than that. That was average. You should go back to your desk and be like, man, I don't want to be average today.
Exactly. I love that.
That's the expectation with the story we're writing to help prepare that. So that's I love the way when you said that. When you talk about culture in the workplace, and I told you this before we jumped on, just being honest. One of the things, as you see companies grow from 20 people to 50 people to 100, how do you, when you see companies succeed, and I think I can define that if you're curious, but when you see them succeed, how do you see them maintain that culture as they grow?
I can speak from experience here. It's not easy, and it's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of work from the leadership team to figure out the best way to communicate, the best platforms, the best way to make people feel not only connected to each other, but connected to their work. So one of the things that we found very helpful, we've implemented in the last 2 years, and this was also right around the point where we went into a remote virtual company. So no longer were we seeing each other in the office, needed to really have that connection. And we implemented an employee engagement platform. So it has a bunch of different features, but some of them that have really changed our business and helped us scale and still treat people like individuals, get to know them for who they are behind their title. There's a whole dashboard where our employees can fill out basic information on themselves, but we want to know, what's your favorite alcoholic beverage? Where's your favorite restaurant to eat at? And then in those little moments where we can recognize them, we can send them a bottle of their favorite wine or send them a gift card to a restaurant. So we're learning about them, and then, selfishly, we're doing something with that information. Our platform also manages our one-on-one scheduling and all the notes. So not necessarily always a manager to a direct report, but any one-on-one conversation that occurs within the company, it will log it. It will remind you to follow up on outstanding questions. So it's almost a system that manages you to stay in touch. And then the other feature is an anonymous survey. So every quarter, all of our employees take a survey, really just talking about their experience as an employee. And as much as we get some really great praise and really great feedback, every quarter without fail, we hear some of the criticism that we're not expecting to hear, but it makes us better as a company. And if we had 100% score quarter after quarter, we wouldn't have any opportunity to get better. So I think, when you grow, you have to have these portals and outlets for voices in your company to be heard. People want to be able to express their opinion. They want the psychological safety of being able to speak up. So having that type of outlet, I think, is really huge. One other thing that I'll just touch on is a recognition system. And I had a moment of pride last week that I didn't even know that I needed this, but somehow an email went through my inbox and I was copied on it. And I saw one of our team leads had sent a really encouraging email to one of their direct reports. And for so many years, I felt responsible for doing that. As the leader of the company, I had to praise everyone. I had to recognize, I had to know the little and big wins. And I'm sure you can relate. It becomes really challenging. So when I saw that at that level, it was happening without, any authority telling them to do that or any prompting, that we have really created a culture that is in line with our values, and that our team is recognizing and praising each other because they appreciate each other, because it's the right thing to do, because we hired the right people. Like, it warms my heart just to be like, wow, it doesn't have to only be me anymore. And maybe it's just empowering our team. Like, we want you to do this. We want you to recognize peer-to-peer support. We want you to recognize if your supervisor goes out of their way to help you, or someone who's directly reporting to you. So a lot of it comes down to encouraging your employees to speak up and making them know that they're allowed to, because I think a lot of times people at the lower levels just don't know what the boundaries are.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. The fact that you've indoctrinated that into the culture and that people just feed into that, that's you've created feedback loops.
Yeah.
That's that. And I think that's awesome, because yes, like you feel like there's days where you're herding 100 cats on a football field, and you just want one cat to take the lead and head in. But and so to see that, you're just like, that's a huge win.
Exactly. And we probably, as leaders, we feel guilty when your team goes from 20 to 40 people within a couple months, and everyone, but you no longer have the time to engage everyone the way you used to when it was 5 or 6 people. So it takes, I don't want to say it takes the burden off, because I still enjoy doing that. But it really brings a lot of value when you're feeling it at all levels.
I've definitely woken up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and been like, I forgot to tell someone something, and you're like, yes. But when you start realizing that it's not totally on you, that someone else already got it done, you're like, maybe I'll hit sleep in my alarm then.
Exactly. And it's just about creating a culture of appreciation and recognition and normalizing that. You don't have to do something so outstanding to get, a little round of applause or a small gift card or a shout out on a company-wide email. It's those little things that add up, and those need to be supported along the way.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's, like I said, one of the things that keeps me up at night is, how do you intentionally, foster that culture? We focus on hiring. We always say big boys, big girls. Like, we're not going to babysit you. We're not going to micromanage. Exactly. We're going to define what winning looks like in the role, the clear accountability to what you're going to own on the ship, but then go forth and conquer. If you need a lot of hand holding, we're not fully developed on our, training side, everything else. We haven't gone through all that stuff. We're just still in growth mode. So,
and that's perfectly fine. You just need to know what the right hire looks like for your company at that growth mode. So next time you're up in the middle of the night, give me a call, because I'm probably up thinking about the same thing.
Same thing. Yes. So you're like,
Exactly.
So going, back into freight and people and culture, what do you see as far as remote work? We have a office in Chicago. Our mutual friend works there. Shout out to Meredith. What do you see as far as trends in hiring and as far as staffing in the office, out, remote or whatnot?
Remote work is here to stay, but it doesn't have to be 100% virtual. I think that a lot of employers are starting to realize the value of attracting people because you have a remote opportunity. So whether it's hybrid, whether it truly is work from home, whether it's the way our company is set up is we are 100% virtual, but we come together face to face once a month, and then for a larger group event once a quarter. And that time together is even more special because we aren't seeing each other at the water cooler every day. But as it relates to the industry, we have really seen some companies take off once they loosen their search and opened up their hiring to remote employees. A lot of times, these are companies that are in markets that don't have a lot of competitors. So there isn't a huge talent pool. For years, they've struggled to hire. They've relied on entry-level hires. They've relied on relocating people. And then the minute they turned on that switch and thought, we could have a remote workforce, we just need to have the right systems and policies and people, their business has grown leaps and bounds. So, I mean, we've got one client in a small market like that. I think in 8 years, we've found one carrier rep for him, and then they turned remote on about a year ago, and we've found 16 carrier reps for them. So, it really comes down to, as an employer, thinking, do I want the best person in my zip code, or do I want the best person in the country? And really elevating your talent based on, those parameters. So it works both ways, but this is a pretty old school industry, and there's not a ton of companies that are quite that flexible yet, although I do think we're going to continue to see change in the future.
I love being in the office here in Kansas City. It's our headquarters, and so we got the most people here. We have a big brokerage floor. We're actually moving our office again in October. We moved last summer, but we're doubling our square footage again. And I like seeing the interaction, people throwing paper walls and everything else. Mm-hmm. That's fun. But there are days, like I had to work from home Friday afternoon. I had a repair guy coming, and I need to go meet him, and it's just more convenient for me. So, and trusting people to get their stuff done, gives them that flexibility as well.
Trust is the biggest, I would say maybe the most underrated value between an employer and an employee. And one of the easiest ways to prove you trust someone is to offer them flexibility. So whether it's the working hours, whether it's the location of where they work, how they work, people want that control of their day. And you're absolutely right. It goes back to productivity. If they can accomplish their job in less time or in a different location than others, by all means, go for it.
Yeah, especially if you've defined what the job is and what winning is.
Exactly.
That's on the employer. Then if they're getting it done too quickly, well then, that's on you. You defined it.
Exactly. You hit your goals, the goals we set out for you. So you can do whatever you want with your time. Hopefully they'll want to keep making more calls and know that their commission check will reflect that. But again, that's why we're hiring adults to make their own decisions.
Yes, no, exactly. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time and joining us today. And looking forward to our next engagement together, and hopefully, coming back on and doing another one of these. Trey encouraged me to stick with it, and we got to do it consistently. So, hopefully, you'll see more and more of the Sethmar story as we get it up and going.
Yeah, bring me back for episode 100.
Done deal.
All right, I'm in.
Hey, Charlie, really appreciate the time, and thank you again.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, appreciate it.